Welcome, welcome, crew, guys, gals, ghouls, friends, fiends, foes, and otherworldly beings. Let's climb aboard the mothership, secure our tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast tonight. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you here with me this evening. If you want to listen to me in your free time, whether you're working it, or working out, feel free to look me up basically anywhere you listen to your podcast under We Are Paradox Media. So tonight is story time with me, TessaTNT, and we are going to be reading Stephen King's book, Cell. Pretty sure we're going to be finishing it this evening. The bookmark fell out of the book, so I'm hoping they have the correct page. I might hop on over there and check that out really quick before we get kicked off, because I don't want to, repeat anything to you or miss anything. Before we go on to that, we'll do the quote of the hour. And the quote of the hour is, "Don't marry for money. You can borrow it cheaper." True that. "15. The giant's foot that had seemed to stamp the roof of Kashwakamok Hall had been a large chunk of school bus. The shingles were burning. Directly in front of them, beyond the little pile of blazing hay, were a pair of upside-down seats, also burning. Their steel frames had been shredded into spaghetti. Clothes floated out of the sky like big snow: shirts, hats, pants, shorts, an athletic supporter, a blazing bra. Clay saw that the hay insulation piled along the bottom of the hall was going to be a moat of fire before very long. They were getting out just in time. Patches of fire dotted the mall area where concerts, outdoor dances, and various competitions had been held. But the chunks of the exploding bus had swept further than that. Clay saw flames burning high in trees that had to be at least 300 yards away. Dead south of their position, the fun house had started to burn, and he could see something. He thought it was probably a human torso, blazing halfway up the strut work of the parachute drop. The flock itself had become a raw meatloaf of dead and dying phoners. Their telepathy had broken down, although little currents of that strange psychic force occasionally tugged at him, making his hair rise and his flesh crawl. But the survivors could still scream, and they filled the night air with their cries. Clay would have gone ahead, even if he'd been able to imagine how bad it was going to be, even in the first few seconds. He made no effort to mislead himself on that score, but this was beyond imagining. The firelight was just enough to show them more than they wanted to see. The mutilations and decapitations were bad, the pools of blood, the littered limbs, but the scattered clothes and shoes with nobody inside them were somehow worse, as if the explosion had been fierce enough to actually vaporize part of the flock. A man walked toward them with his hands to his throat in an effort to stem the flow of blood pouring over him between his fingers. It looked orange in the growing glow of the hall's burning roof, while his intestines swung back and forth at the level of his crotch. More wet loops came sliding out as he walked past them, his eyes wide and unseeing. Jordan was saying something. Clay couldn't hear it over the screams, the wells, and the growing crackle of fire from behind him, so he leaned closer. "We had to do it. It was all we could do," Jordan said. He looked at a headless woman, a legless man, at something so torn open it had become a flesh canoe filled with blood. Beyond it, 2 more bus seats lay on a pair of burning women who had died in each other's arms. We had to do it. It was all we could do. We had to do it. It was all we could do. That's right, honey. Put your face against me and walk like that, Clay said, and Jordan immediately buried his face in Clay's side. Walking that way was uncomfortable, but it could be done. They skirted the edge of the flock's campground, moving toward the... My page stuck together. Come on, man. Back of what would have been a completely midway and amusement arcade if the Pulse hadn't intervened. As they went, Kashawakamak Hall burned brighter, casting more light on the mall. Dark shapes, many naked or almost naked, the clothes blown right off of them, staggered and shambled. Clay had no idea how many. The few that passed close by their little group showed no interest in them. They either continued on toward the Midway area or plunged into the woods west of the expo grounds, where Clay was quite sure they would die of exposure unless they could reestablish some sort of flock consciousness. He didn't think they could, partly because of the virus, but mostly because of Jordan's decision to drive the bus right into the middle of them and achieve a maximum kill zone, as they had with the propane trucks. If they'd ever known snuffing one old man could lead to this, Clay thought. And then he thought, but how could they? They reached the dirt lot where the carnies had parked their trucks and campers. Here the ground was thick with snaking electrical cables, and the spaces between the campers were filled with the accessories of families who lived on the road. Barbecues, gas grills, lawn chairs, a hammock, a little laundry whirligig with clothes that had probably been hanging there for almost 2 weeks. Let's find something with the keys in it and get the hell out of here, Dan said. They cleared the feeder road, and if we're careful, I bet we can go north on 160 as far as we want, he pointed. Up there is just about all no-foe. Clay had spotted a panel truck with limbs, painting, and plumbing on the back. He tried the doors, and they opened. The inside was filled with milk crates, most crammed with various plumbing supplies, but in one he found what he wanted, paint and spray cans. He took 4 of these after checking to make sure they were full, or almost full. What are those for? Tom asked. Tell you later, Clay said. Let's get out of here, please, Denise said. I can't stand this. My pants are soaked with blood. She began to cry. They came onto the midway between the Crazy Cups and a half-constructed kiddie ride called Charlie the Choo-Choo. Look, Tom said, pointing. Oh, my God, Dan said softly. Lying draped across the peak of the train ride's ticket booth was the remains of a charred and smoking red sweatshirt, the kind sometimes called a hoodie. A large splotch of blood matted the front around a hole called, probably made by a chunk of flying school bus. Before the blood took over, covering the rest, Clay could make out 3 letters. The Raggedy Man's last laugh. Har. 16. There's nobody in the fucking thing, and judging by the size of the hole, he had open-heart surgery without benefit of anesthetic, Denise said. So, when you're tired of looking... There's another little parking lot down at the south end of the midway, Tom said. Nice-looking cars in that one. Boss-type cars. We might get lucky. They did, but not with a nice-looking car. A small van with Tyco water purification experts was parked behind a number of the nice-looking cars, effectively blocking them in. The Tyco man had considerately left his keys in the ignition, probably for that reason, and Clay drove them away from the fire, the carnage, and the screams, rolling with slow care down the feeder road to the junction, marked by the billboard showing the sort of happy family that no longer existed, if it ever had. There Clay stopped and put the gear shift lever in park. One of you guys has to take over now, he said. Why, Clay? Jordan asked, but Clay knew from the boy's voice that Jordan already knew. Because this is where I get up, he said. No! Yes, I'm going to look for my boy. Tom said, He's almost certainly dead back there. I'm not meaning to be a hard-ass, only realistic. I know that, Tom. I also know there's a chance he's not, and so do you. Jordan said they were walking every which way like they were totally lost. Denise said, Clay, honey, even if he's alive, he could be wandering around in the woods with half his head blown off. I hate to say that, but you know it's true. Clay nodded. I also know he could have gotten out earlier while we were locked up and started down the road to Gurleyville. A couple of others made it that far. I saw them, and I saw others on the way. So did you. No arguing with the artistic mind, is there? Tom asked sadly. No, Clay said, but I wonder if you and Jordan would step outside with me for a minute. Tom sighed. Why not? He said. 17. Several phoners, looking lost and bewildered, walked past them as they stood by the side of the little water purification van. Clay, Tom, and Jordan paid no attention to them, and the phoners returned the favor. To the northwest, the horizon was a bright and red orange as Kashawakamak Hall shared its fire with the forest behind it. No big goodbyes this time, Clay said, affecting not to see the tears in Jordan's eyes. I'm expecting to see you again. Here, Tom, take this. He held out the cell phone he'd used to set off the blast. Tom took it. Go north from here. Keep checking that thing for bars. If you come to road reefs, abandon what you're driving, walk until the road's clear, then take another car or truck and drive again. You'll probably get cell transmission bars around the Rangeley area. That was boating in the summer, hunting in the fall, skiing in the winter, but beyond there you should be in the clear, and days should be safe. I bet they're safe now, Jordan said, wiping his eyes. Clay nodded. You might be right. Anyway, use your judgment. When you get 100 or so miles north of Rangeley, find a cabin or lodge or something, fill it with supplies, and lay up for the winter. You know what the winter's going to do to these things, don't you? If the flock mind falls apart and they don't migrate, almost all of them will die, Tom said. Those north of the Mason-Dixon line, at least. I think so, yeah. I put those cans of spray paint in the center console. Every 20 miles or so, spray TJD on the road. Nice and big, got it? TJD, Jordan said. For Tom, Jordan, Dan, and Denise? Right. Make sure you spray it extra big with an arrow if you change roads. If you take dirt roads, spray it on the tree. Always on the right-hand side of the road. That's where I'll be looking. Have you got that? Always on the right, Tom said. Come with us, Clay, please. No. Don't make this harder for me than it already is. Every time you have to abandon a vehicle, leave it in the middle of the road and spray it TJD, okay? Okay, Jordan said. You better find us. I will. This is going to be a dangerous world for a while, but not quite as dangerous as it's been. Jordan, I need to ask you something. All right. If I find Johnny and the worst that's happened to him is a trip through their conversion point, what should I do? Jordan gaped. How would I know? Jesus, Clay. Jesus. You knew they were rebooting, Clay said. I made a guess. Clay knew it had been a lot more than that. A lot better than that. He also knew Jordan was exhausted and terrified. He dropped to one knee in front of the boy and took his hand. Don't be afraid. It can't be any worse for him than it already is. God knows it can't. Clay, Jordan looked at Tom. People aren't like computers, Tom. Tell him. But computers are like people, aren't they? Tom said. Because we built what we know. You knew about the reboot and you knew about the worm, so tell him what you think. He probably won't find the kid anyway. If he does, Tom shrugged. Like he said, how much worse can it be? Jordan thought about this, biting his lip. He looked terribly tired and there was blood on his shirt. Are you guys coming? Dan called. Give us another minute, Tom said. and then in a softer tone, "Jordan?" Jordan was quiet a moment longer. Then he looked at Clay and said, "You'd need another cell phone, and you'd need to take him to a place where there's coverage." Save to System is the name of the next chapter. 1. Clay stood in the middle of Route 160 in what would have been billboard shadow on a sunny day and watched the tail lights until they were out of sight. He couldn't shake the idea that he would never see Tom and Jordan again. Fading roses, his mind whispered, but he refused to let it grow into a premonition. They had come together twice, after all, and didn't people say the third time was the charm? A passing phoner bumped him. It was a man with blood congealing on the side of his face. The first injured refugee from the Northern Counties Expo that he'd seen. He would see more if he didn't stay ahead of them, so he set off along Route 160 heading south again. He had no real reason to think this kid had gone south, but hoped that some vestige of Johnny's mind, his old mind, told him home lay in that direction. And it was a direction Clay knew at least. About half a mile south of the feeder road, he encountered another phoner, this one a woman, who was pacing rapidly back and forth across the highway like a captain on the foredeck of her ship. She looked around at Clay with sharp regard, that he raised his hands, ready to grapple with her if she attacked him. She didn't. "Who fada?" she asked, and in his mind quite clearly he heard, "Who fell, Daddy, who fell?" "I don't know," he said, easing past her. "I didn't see." "Where na?" she asked, pacing more furiously than ever, and in his mind he heard, "Where am I now?" This he made no attempt to answer, but in his mind he thought of Pixie Dark asking, "Who are you? Who am I?" Clay walked faster, but not quite fast enough. The pacing woman called after him, chilling him. "Who pita?" And in his mind he heard this question echo with chilling clarity. "Who is Pixie Dark?" 2. There was no gun in the first house he broke into, but there was a long-barreled flashlight, and he shone it on every straggling phoner he encountered, always asking the same question, trying simultaneously to throw it with his mind like a magic lantern slide on a screen. "Have you seen a boy?" He got no answers and heard only fading fragments of thoughts in his head. At the second house there was a nice Dodge Ram in the driveway, but Clay didn't dare take it. If Johnny was on this road, he'd be walking. If Clay was driving, he might miss his boy, even if he was driving slow. In the pantry, he found a Daisy canned ham, which he unzipped with the attached key and munched as he hit the road again. He was about to throw the balance into the weeds after he'd eaten his fill when he saw an elderly phoner standing beside a mailbox, watching him with a sad and hungry eye. Clay held out the ham, and the old man took it. Then, speaking slowly and clearly, trying to picture Johnny in his mind, Clay said, "Have you seen a boy?" The old man chewed ham, swallowed, appeared to consider, said, "Gana the wishy." "The wishy," Clay said. "Right, thanks." He walked on. In the third house, a mile or so farther south, he found a 30-30 in the basement, along with 3 boxes of shells. In the kitchen, he found a cell phone sitting in its charging cradle on the counter. The charger was dead, of course, but when he pushed the button on the phone, it beeped and powered up immediately. He only got a single bar, but this didn't surprise him. The phoner's conversion point had been at the edge of the grid. He started for the door with a loaded rifle in one hand, the flashlight in the other, and the cell phone clipped to his belt, when simple exhaustion overwhelmed him. He staggered sideways as if struck by the head of a hammer. He wanted to go on, but such sense was his tired mind was able to muster told him He had to sleep now, and maybe sleep even made sense. If Johnny was out here, the chances were good he was sleeping too. "Switch over to the day shift, Clayton," he muttered. "You're not going to find jack shit in the middle of the night with a flashlight." It was a small house, the home of an elderly couple, he thought, judging by the pictures in the living room and the single bedroom and the rails surrounding the toilet in the single bathroom. The bed was neatly made. He lay down on it without opening the covers, only taking off his shoes. And once he was down, the exhaustion seemed to settle on him like a weight. He could not imagine getting up for anything. There was a smell in the room. Some old woman's sachet, he thought. A grandmotherly smell that seemed almost as tired as he felt. Lying here in the silence, the carnage at the expo grounds seemed distant and unreal, like an idea for a comic he would never write. Too gruesome. Stick with Dark Wanderer, Sharon might have said. His old, sweet Sharon. Stick with your apocalypse cowboys. His mind seemed to rise and float above his body. It returned lazily without hurry to the three of them standing beside the Tyco water purification van, just before Tom and Jordan had climbed back aboard. Jordan had repeated what he'd said back at Gayton about how human brains were really just big old hard drives and the pulse had wiped them clean. Jordan said the pulse had acted on human brains like an EMP. Nothing left but the core, Jordan had said, and the core was murder. But because brains are organic hard drives, they started to build themselves back up again, to reboot. Only there was a glitch in the single code. I don't have proof, but I'm positive that the flocking behavior, the telepathy, and levitation, all that came from the glitch. The glitch was there from the start, so it became part of the reboot. Are you following this? Clay had nodded. Tom had too. The boy looked at them, his blood-smeared face tired and earnest. But meanwhile, the pulse keeps on pulsing, right? Because somewhere there's a computer running on battery power, and it keeps running that program. The program's rotten, so the glitch in it continues to mutate. Eventually, the signal may quit on the program, or the program may get so rotten it'll shut down. In the meantime, though, you might be able to use it. I say might. You got that? It all depends on whether or not brains do what seriously protected computers do when they're hit with an EMP. Tom had asked what that was, and Jordan had given him a wan smile. They saved a system, all data. If that happens with people, and if you could wipe the phone or program, the old programming might eventually reboot. He meant the human programming, Clay murmured in the dark bedroom, smelling that sweet, faint aroma of sachet. The human programming, saved somewhere way down deep, all of it. He was going now, drifting off. If he was going to dream, he hoped it would not be of the carnage at the Northern Counties Expo. His last thought before sleep took him was that maybe in the long run the phoners would have been better. Yes, they had been born in violence and in horror, but birth was usually difficult, often violent, and sometimes horrible. Once they had begun flocking and mind-melding, the violence had subsided. So far as he knew, they hadn't actually made war on the normies, unless one considered forcible conversion an act of war. The reprisals following the destruction of their flocks had been gruesome but perfectly understandable. If left alone, they might eventually have turned out to be better custodians of the earth than the so-called normies. They certainly wouldn't have been falling all over themselves to buy gas-guzzling SUVs, not with their levitation skills or with their rather primitive consumer appetites for that matter. Hell, even their taste in music had been improving at the end. But what choice did we have, Clay thought. Survival is like love. Both are blind. Sleep took him then, and he didn't dream of the slaughter at the expo. He dreamed he was in a bingo tent, and as the caller announced B12, it's the sunshine vitamin, he felt a tug on the leg of his pants. He looked under the table. Johnny was there, smiling up at him. And somewhere a phone was ringing. 3. Not all of the rage had gone out of the phono refugees, nor had the wild talents entirely departed either. Around noon of the next day, which was cold and raw with the foretaste of November in the air, Clay stopped to watch two of them fighting furiously on the shoulder of the road. They punched, then clawed, then finally grappled together, butting heads and biting at each other's cheeks and necks. As they did, they began to rise slowly off the road. Clay watched, mouth hanging open, as they attained a height of approximately 10 feet, still fighting, their feet apart and braced as if standing on an invisible floor. Then one of them sank his teeth into the nose of his opponent, who was wearing a ragged blood-stained t-shirt with the words "Heavy Fuel" printed across the front. Nosebiter pushed Heavy Fuel backward. Heavy Fuel staggered, then dropped like a rock down a well. Blood streamed upward from his ruptured nose as he fell. Nosebiter looked down, seemed to realize for the first time that he was a second story's height above the road, and went down himself. Like Dumbo losing his magic feather, Clay thought. Nosebiter wrenched his knee and lay in the dust, lips pulled back from his blood-stained teeth, snarling at Clay as he passed. Yet these two were an exception. Most of the phoners Clay passed, he saw no normies at all that day or all the following week, seemed lost and bewildered with no flock mind to support them. Clay thought again and again of something Jordan had said before getting back in the van and heading into the North Woods, where there was no cell phone coverage. If the worms continuing to mutate, their newest conversions aren't going to be either phoners or normies. Not really. Clay thought that meant like Pixie Dark, only a little further gone. Who are you? Who am I? He could see these questions in their eyes, and he suspected. No, he knew. It was these questions they were trying to ask when they spouted their gibberish. He continued to ask, "Have you seen a boy?" and to try to send Johnny's picture, but he had no hope of an answer that made sense now. Most times he got no answer at all. He stayed the next night in a trailer about 5 miles north of Gurleyville, and the next morning at a little past 9, he spied a small figure sitting on the curb outside the Gurleyville Cafe, in the middle of the town's one-block business district. It can't be, he thought, but he began to walk faster, and when he got a little closer, close enough to be almost sure that the figure was that of a child and not just a small adult, he began to run. His knee pack began to bounce up and down on his back. His feet found the place where Gurleyville's short length of sidewalk commenced and began clapping on the concrete. It was a boy. A very skinny boy with long hair almost down to the shoulders of his Red Sox t-shirt. "Johnny?" Clay shouted. "Johnny! Johnny G!" The boy turned toward the sound of the shout, startled. His mouth hung open in a vacant gawp. There was nothing in his eyes but vague alarm. He looked as if he was thinking about running, but before he could even begin to put his legs in gear, Clay had swept him up and was covering his grimy, unresponsive face and slack mouth with kisses. "Johnny," Clay said. "Johnny, I came for you. I did. I came for you. I came for you." And at some point, perhaps only because the man holding him had begun to swing him around in a circle, the child put his hands around Clay's neck and hung on. He said something as well. Clay refused to believe it was empty vocalization, as meaningless as wind blowing across the mouth of an empty pop bottle. It was a word. It might have been "tai," as if the boy was trying to say "tired." Or it might have been "dai," which was the way he had, as a 16-month-old, first named his father. Clay chose to hang on to that, to believe the pallid, dirty, malnourished child clinging to his neck had called him Daddy. 4. It was little enough to hang on to, he thought a week later. One sound that might have been a word, one word that might have been Daddy. Now the boy was sleeping on a cot in a bedroom closet, because Johnny would settle there and because Clay was tired of fishing him out from under the bed. The almost womb-like confines of the closet seemed to comfort him. Perhaps it was part of the conversion he and the others had been through. Some conversion. The phoners at Cashwalk had turned his son into a haunted moron without even a flock for comfort. Outside, under a gray evening sky, snow was spitting down. A cold wind scented up Springville's lightless Main Street and undulating snakes. It seemed too early for snow, but of course it wasn't, especially this far north. When it came before Thanksgiving, you always griped, and when it came before Halloween, you griped double, and then somebody reminded you that you were living in Maine, not on the Isle of Capri. He wondered where Tom, Jordan, Dan, and Denise were tonight. He wondered how Denise would do when it came time to have her baby. He thought she'd probably do okay. Tough as a boiled owl, that baby. He thought she'd probably do okay. He wondered if Tom and Jordan thought about him as often as he thought about them, and if they missed him as much as he missed them. Jordan's solemn eyes, Tom's ironic smile. He hadn't seen half enough of that smile. What they'd been through hadn't been all that funny. He wondered if this last week, with his broken son, had been the loneliest of his life. He thought the answer to that was yes. Clay looked down at the cell phone in his hand. More than anything else, he wondered about that. Whether to make one more call. There were bars on its little panel when he powered up. 3 good bars. But the charge wouldn't last forever, and he knew it. Nor could he count on the pulse to continue forever. The battery sending the signal up to the comm satellites, if that was what was happening, and if it was still happening, might give out. Or the pulse might mutate into no more than a simple carrier wave, an idiot drum, or the kind of high-pitched shriek you used to get when you called someone's fax line by mistake. Snow. Snow on the 21st of October. Was it the 21st? He'd lost track of the days. One thing he knew for sure was that the phoners would be dying out there, more every night. Johnny would have been one of them, if Clay hadn't searched and found him. The question was, what had he found? What had he saved? Daddy? Daddy? Maybe. Certainly the kid hadn't said anything even remotely resembling a word since then. He had been willing to walk with Clay, but he'd also been prone to wandering off in his own direction. When he did that, Clay had to grab him again, the way you grabbed a tot who tried to take off in the supermarket parking lot. Each time Clay did this, he couldn't help thinking of a wind-up robot he'd had when he was a kid, and how it would always find its way into a corner and stand there marching its feet uselessly up and down until you turned it back toward the middle of the room again. Johnny had put up a brief, panicky fight when Clay had found a car with a key in it, but once he got the boy buckled and locked in and got the car rolling, Johnny had quieted again and seemed to become almost hypnotized. He even found the button that unrolled the window and let the wind blow in his face, closing his eyes and lifting his head slightly. Clay watched the wind blowing back his son's long, dirty hair and thought, God help me, it's like riding with a dog. When they came to the road reef, they couldn't get around, and Clay helped Johnny from the car. He discovered his son had wet his pants. He's lost his toilet training along with his language. He had thought dismally, Christ on a crutch, and that turned out to be true, but the consequences weren't as complicated or dire as Clay thought they might be. Johnny was no longer toilet trained, but if you stopped and led him into a field, he would urinate if he had to. Or if he had to squat, he'd do that, looking dreamily up at the sky while he emptied his bowels. Perhaps tracing the courses of the birds that flew there, perhaps not. Not toilet-trained, but housebroken. Again, Clay was helpless not to think of dogs he had owned. Only dogs did not wake up and scream for 15 minutes in the middle of each night. 5. That first night they had stayed in a house not far from the Newfield trading post, and when the screaming started, Clay had thought Johnny was dying, and although the boy had fallen asleep in his arms, he was gone when Clay snapped awake. Johnny was no longer in the bed, but under it. Clay crawled underneath into a choking cavern of dust kitties, with the bottom of the box spring only an inch above his head, and clutched a slender body that was like an iron rail. The boy's shrieks were bigger than such small lungs could produce, and Clay understood that he was hearing them amplified in his head. All of Clay's hair, even his pubic hair, seemed to be standing up straight and stiff. Johnny had shrieked for nearly 15 minutes there under the bed, then ceased as abruptly as he had begun. His body went limp. Clay had to press his head against Johnny's side. One of the boy's arms somehow squeezed over his neck in the impossibly small space, to make sure he was breathing. He had dragged Johnny out, limp as a mill sack, and had gotten the dusty, dirty body back onto the bed. Had lain awake beside him almost an hour before falling soddenly asleep himself. In the morning, the bed had been his alone again. Johnny had crawled underneath once more, like a beaten dog seeking the smallest shelter it could find. Quite the opposite of previous phoner behavior, it seemed, but of course, Johnny wasn't like them. Johnny was a new thing. God help him. 6. Now they were in the cozy caretaker's cottage next to the Springvale Lodging Museum. There was plenty to eat. There was a wood stove. There was fresh water from the hand pump. There was even a chemical toilet, although Johnny wouldn't use it. Johnny used the backyard. All mod cons, circa 1908. It had been quiet time, except for Johnny's nightly screaming fit. There had been time to think, and now standing here by the living room window and watching snow scurl up the street while his son slept in his little closet hidey hole, there was time to realize that the time for thinking was done. Nothing was going to change unless he changed it. You'd need another cell phone, Jordan had said, and you'd need to take him to a place where there's coverage. There was coverage here, still coverage. He had the bars on the cell phone to prove it. How much worse can it be? Tom had asked and shrugged, but of course he could shrug, couldn't he? Johnny wasn't Tom's kid. Tom had his own kid now. It all depends on whether or not brains do what seriously protected computers do when they're hit with an EMP, Jordan said. They save to system. Save to system. A phrase of some power. But you'd have to wipe the phoner program first to make space for such a highly theoretical second reboot. And Jordan's idea, to hit Johnny with a pulse yet again, like lighting a backfire, seemed so spooky, so off-the-wall dangerous, given the fact that Clay had no way of knowing what sort of program the pulse had mutated into by now. Assuming makes an ass out of you and me, yeah. It was still up and running at all. Save to system, Clay whispered. Outside the light was almost gone. The scrolling snow looked more ghostly than ever. The pulse was different now. He was sure of that. He remembered the first phoners he'd come upon, who were up at night, the ones at the Gurleyville Volunteer Fire Department. They had been fighting over the old pumper, but they had been doing more than that. They had been talking, not just making phantom vocalizations that might have been words talking. It hadn't been much, not brilliant cocktail party chatter, but actual talk just the same. Go away. You go. Hell, you say. And the always popular Meinuck. Those two had been different from the original phoners, the phoners of the Raggedy Man era. And Johnny was different from those two. Why? Because the worm was still munching? The pulse program was still mutating? Probably. The last thing Jordan had said before kissing him goodbye and heading north was, if you set a new version of the program against the one Johnny and the others got at the checkpoint, they might eat each other up, because that's what worms do. They eat. And then if the old programming was there, if it was saved to the system, Clay found his troubled mind turning to Alice. Alice, who had lost her mother. Alice, who had found a way to be brave by transferring her fears to a child sneaker. 4 hours or so out of Gayton on Route 156, Tom had asked another group of normies if they'd like to share their picnic site by the roadside of the road. "That's them," one of the men had said. "That's the Gayton bunch." Another had told Tom to go to hell, and Alice had jumped up and said, "She said at least we did something," Clay said as he looked out into the darkening street. Then she asked them, "Just what the fuck did you do?" So there was his answer, courtesy of a dead girl. Johnny G wasn't getting better. Clay's choices came down to two: stick with what he had or try to make a change while there was still time, if there was. Clay used a battery-powered lamp to light his way into the bedroom. The closet door was ajar and he could see Johnny's face. In sleep, lying with his cheek on one hand and his hair tousled across his forehead. He looked almost exactly like the boy Clay had kissed goodbye before setting out for Boston, with his dark wanderer portfolio 1,000 years ago. A little thinner, otherwise pretty much the same. It was only when he was awake that you saw the differences. The slack mouth and the empty eyes, the slumped shoulders and the dangling hands. Clay opened the closet door all the way and knelt in front of the cot. Johnny stirred a little when the light of the lantern struck his face, then settled again. Clay was not a praying man, and events of the last few weeks had not greatly increased his faith in God, but he had found his son. There was that, so he sent a prayer up to whatever might be listening. It was short and to the point. "Tony, Tony, come around. Something's lost that can't be found." He flipped open the cell and pushed the power button. It beeped softly. The amber light in the window came on. 3 bars. He hesitated for a moment, but when it came to placing the call, there was only one sure shot, the one the Raggedy Man and his friends had taken. When the 3 digits were entered, he reached out and shook Johnny's shoulder. The boy didn't want to wake up. He groaned and tried to pull away. Then he tried to turn over. Clay couldn't let him do either. "Johnny! Johnny G! Wake up!" He shook harder and kept on shaking until the boy finally opened his empty eyes and looked at him with wariness but no human curiosity. It was the sort of look you got from a badly treated dog, and it broke Clay's heart every time he saw it. Last chance, he thought. Do you really mean to do this? The odds can't be 1 in 10. But what had the odds been on this finding Johnny in the first place, of leaving Johnny in the Kashawakamak flock before the explosion, for that matter? 1 in 1,000? In 10,000? Was he going to live with that wary yet incurious look at Johnny as he turned 15, 13, then 15, then 21, while his son slept in the closet and shat in the backyard? "At least we did something," Alice Maxwell had said. He looked in the window above the keypad. There the numbers 911 stood out as bright and black as some declared destiny. Johnny's eyes were drooping. Clay gave him another brisk shake to keep him from falling asleep again. He did this with his left hand. With the thumb of his right hand he pushed the phone's call button. There was time to count Mississippi 1 and Mississippi 2 before calling, and the phone's little lighted window changed to connected. When that happened, Clayton Rydell didn't allow himself time to think. "Hey, Johnny G," he said. "Fo you," and pressed the cell against his son's ear. December 30, 2004 through October 17th, 2005. Center Lovell, Maine. So Chuck Verrill edited the book and did a great job. Thanks, Chuck. Robin Firth did research on cell phones and provided various theories on what may lie at the core of the human psyche. Good info is hers. Errors in understanding are mine. Thanks, Robin. My wife read the first draft manuscript and said encouraging things. Thanks, Tabby. Bostonians and northern New Englanders will know I took certain geographical liberties. What can I say? It goes with the territory, to make a small pun. the best of my knowledge, FEMA hasn't appropriated any money to provide backup generators for cell telephone transmission towers, but I should note that many transmission towers do have generator backup in case of power outages. Stephen King. Stephen King lives in Maine with his wife, the novelist Tabitha King. He does not own a cell phone. On the following pages is an excerpt in the author's hand from the forthcoming novel Lizzie's Story, which Scribner will publish on October 24th, 2006. Lizzie's Story, Stephen King, Part 1. Bull Hunt. Chapter 1, Lizzie and Amanda. Everything the same. 1. Well, let's go ahead and save this for... yeah. Let's go ahead and save it till after the music break, and then we'll move on to some ghost stories, or alien stories, or UFO stories, something like that on Reddit, to entertain ourselves until we come up with another book for story time. And yeah, we haven't done any Reddit ghost stories for a while, so that should be fun. But on that note, we're going to our first music break, and on this break we have the lovely and talented Miss Mia Savage with Your Skeleton, Our New Reality, Lemurian Crypto, and Let Me Be Your Home. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
That I could take it, no matter how I
Right, that was Miss Me Savage with her group Antidote for Savages. If you want to check her out, you can check her out on Instagram. Antidote for Savages. All right. So it's like, is this Lizzie's or Lizzie's? Lisey? I don't know. Lizzie and Amanda is what I'm going to say. To the public eye, the spouses of well-known writers are all but invisible, and no one knew it better than Lizzie Landon. Her husband had won the Pulitzer and the National Book Award, but Lizzie had only given one interview in her life. This was for the well-known women's magazine that published the column, "Yes, I'm Married to Him." She spent roughly half of its 500-word length explaining that her nickname rhymed with Cece. Most of the other half had to do with her recipe for slow-cooked roast beef. Lizzie's sister, Amanda, said that the picture accompanying the interview made Lizzie look fat. None of Lizzie's sisters were immune to the pleasantries of setting the cat among the pigeons, where they had been living. Like a couple of wolverines caught in a drainpipe, Scott said after a visit to Vowed Never to Repeat. In 1985, her one child, named Internezo and called Metzi for short, had gone north to Canada with a long-haul trucker for a beau in 1989. One flew north, one flew south, one couldn't shut her everlasting mouth. That had been their father's rhyme when they were kids, and the one of Dandy Dave DeBoucher's girls who could never shut her everlasting mouth was surely Manda, first fired by her husband and then dumped by her daughter. Bull the end, Scott would have said, probably with a laugh, and probably Lizzie would have laughed with him. With Scott, she had always laughed a lot. Hard to like as Amanda sometimes was, Lizzie hadn't wanted her down there in Rumford on her own, didn't trust her on her own, if it came to that, and although they'd never said so, Lizzie was sure Darla and Cantata felt the same. So she'd had to talk with Scott and found that the little Cape Cod, which could be had for $97,000 cash on the nail, Amanda had moved up within easy checking range soon after. Now Scott was dead, and Lizzie had finally gotten around to the business of cleaning out his writing quarters. Halfway through the fourth day, the foreign editors were boxed up. Correspondence was marked and in some sort of order, and she had a good idea of what furniture was going and what was staying. So why did it feel that she had done so little? She'd known from the outset that this was a job that couldn't be hurried. Never mind all the importuning letters and phone calls she'd gotten since Scott's death, and more than a few visits too. She'd supposed that in the end the people who were interested in Scott's unpublished writing would get what they wanted, but not until she was ready to give it to them. They hadn't been clear on that at first. They weren't down with it, as the saying was. Now, she thought most of them were. There were lots of words for the stuff Scott had left behind. The only one she completely understood was memorabilia. But there was another one, a funny one, that sounded like enunciabilia. That was what the impatient people wanted. The wheedlers, the angry ones, Scott's enunciabilia. Lizzie began to think of them as inkunks. 2. What she felt most of all, especially after Amanda showed up, was discouraged, as if she'd either underestimated the task itself or overestimated wildly her ability to see it through to its inevitable conclusion. The saved furniture stored in the barn below, the rugs rolled up and taped shut, the yellow Ryder van in the driveway throwing its shadow on the board fence between her yard and the Galloways next door. Oh, and don't forget the sad heart of this place, the 3 desktop computers. There had been 4, but the one in Scott's memory nook was now gone, thanks to Lizzie herself. Each was never newer and lighter than the last, but even the newest was still a big desktop model, and all of them still worked. They were password protected too, and she didn't know what the passwords were. She never asked and had no idea what kind of electro litter might be sleeping on the computer's hard drives. Grocery lists, poems, erotica. She was sure he'd been connected to the internet, but had no idea where he visited when he was there. Amazon, Drudge, Hank Williams Live, Madame Cruella's Golden Showers and Tower of Power. She tended not to think anything like that, but to think she would have seen the bills, except, of course, that was really bullshit. Or bill shit, if you wanted to be punny about it. If Scott had wanted to hide $1,000 a month from her, he could have done so. And the passwords? The joke was, he might have told her. She forgot stuff like that, that was all. She reminded herself to try her own name, maybe after Amanda had taken herself home for the day, which didn't look like happening anytime soon. Lizzie sat back and blew the hair off her forehead. I won't get to the manuscripts until July at this rate, she thought. The inkanks would go nuts if they saw the way I've cruelly crawling along, especially that last one. The last one, 5 months ago, this had managed not to blow up, had managed to keep a very civil tongue about him until she'd begun to think he might be different. Lizzie told him that Scott's writing suite had been sitting empty for almost a year and a half at that time, but she'd almost mustered the energy and resolved to go up there and start the work of cleaning the rooms and setting the place to rights. Her visitor's name had been Professor Joseph Woodbody of the University of Pittsburgh English Department. Pitt was Scott's alma mater, and Woodbody's Scott Landon and the American Myth lecture class was extremely popular and extremely large. He also had 4 graduate students doing Scott Landon thesis this year, and so it was probably inevitable that the Inkunk warrior should come to the fore when Lizzie spoke in such vague terms as sooner rather than later, and almost certainly sometimes this summer. But it wasn't until she assured him that she would give him a call when the dust settles that Woodbody really began to give way. He said the fact that she had shared a great American writer's bed did not qualify her to serve as his literary executor. That, he said, was a job for an expert, and he understood that Mrs. Landon had no college degree at all. He reminded her of the years already gone since Scott Landon's death, and of the rumors that continued to grow. Supposedly, there were piles of unpublished Landon fiction, short stories, even novels. Could she not let him into the study for even a little while? Let him prospect a bit in the file cabinets and desk drawers, if only to set the most outrageous rumors at rest? She could stay with him the whole time, of course. That went without saying. "No," she said, showing Professor Woodbody the door. "I'm not ready just yet." Overlooking the man's lower blows, trying to at least, because he was obviously as crazy as the rest of them, he'd just hidden it better and for a little longer. "And when I am, I want to look at everything, not just the manuscripts." But she had nodded seriously at him. Everything the same. "I don't understand what you mean by that." Of course he didn't. It had been part of her marriage's inner language. How many times had Scott come breezing in calling, "Hey Lizzie, I'm home. Everything the same?" Meaning, is everything alright? Is everything cool? But like most phrases of power, Scott had explained this once to her, but Lizzie had already known it. It had an inside meaning. A man like Woodbody could never grasp the inside meaning of everything the same. Lizzie could explain all day, and he still wouldn't get it. Why? Because he was an Inkunk, and when it came to Scott Landon, only one thing interested the Inkunks. It doesn't matter, was what she'd said to Professor Woodbody on the day 5 months ago. Scott would have understood. 3. If Amanda had asked Lizzie where Scott's memory nook things had been stored, the awards and plaques, stuff like that, Lizzie would have lied, a thing which she did tolerably well for one who did it seldom, and said, "I'll store it in Mechanic Falls." Amanda did not ask, however. She just paged ever more ostentatiously through the little notebook, surely trying to get her younger sister to broach the subject with the proper question. But Lizzie also did not ask. She was thinking of how empty this corner was, how empty the uninteresting with so many of Scott's mementos gone, either destroyed as she had destroyed the computer monitor, or too badly scratched and dented to be shown. Such an exhibit would raise more questions than it could ever answer. At last Amanda gave in and opened her notebook. "Look at this," she said. "Just look." Amanda was holding out the first page, written on the blue lines, crammed in from the little wire loops on the left to the edge of the sheet on the right, like a coded message from one of those street crazies you're always running into in New York because there's not enough money for the publicity-funded mental institutes anymore. Lizzie thought wearily. Were numbers. Most had been circled. A very few had been enclosed in squares. Amanda turned the page, and now here were 2 pages filled with more of the same. On the following page, the number stopped halfway down. The final one appeared to be 856. Amanda gave her the sidelong, red-cheeked, and somehow hilarious expression of hotter that had meant, when she was 12 and little Lizzie only 2, that Amanda had gone and taken something on herself. Tears for someone would follow. Amanda herself, more often than not. Lizzie found herself waiting with some interest and a touch of dread to see what expression might mean this time. Amanda had been acting nutty ever since turning up. Wow. I wonder if that book was ever written. And if it was, what is it called? Lizzie's Story. Wow. That was intriguing. Alright, let's go ahead and hop on over to some Reddit ghost stories, perhaps. Also, I almost forgot to do the thought of the hour, or the quote of the hour. And it is, if at first you do succeed, try to hide your astonishment. Alright. Reddit Ghost Stories. This one is by user Galactic Sonder. The medical building I work at is very haunted. I work as a behavior therapist in a large multi-level building. I'm only a few weeks away from advancing to the business end, as I have an MBA degree, and after my exam I'm hopefully going to work with the company's marketing team. They only hire from within, so I had to first start as a tech, RBT, and now therapist. I say this because unless I had to work in the actual space with the kiddos, I never would have experienced the following unexplainable paranormal incidents. Our center is located deep inside the north wing of the bottom floor. You have to go through double doors, down a narrow hallway, and through another heavy door to even reach our space. Most people don't even realize there's a therapy center down there. We specialize in working with autistic children ages 2 to 17. The building itself contains other businesses. There's a cardiovascular clinic upstairs, SAT prep classrooms scattered throughout on the floor above level 2, and driving schools on miscellaneous training centers on other floors. Security guards the front lobby, and it's a maze just getting from one wing to the next. In our center alone, there are over a dozen rooms: therapy rooms, restrooms, a sensory room, offices, cubicles, and a kitchen. Each section meant to accommodate the varying needs of our clients. It should feel safe, but it doesn't. Let me start with something small, though. Small doesn't quite cut it. I was working with one of our kiddos, a little boy who always tries to lock the bathroom door, a habit we closely monitor because elopement is a constant concern. Sometimes he locks the door and would giggle like he's playing a prank on me, but even this type of behavior was so not like him. Even before we learned about this bizarre tendency of his, we'd usually just shut the door and would knock whenever he was done. He never had issues with locking it, which is something that I still believe wasn't plausible. This kiddo does not play pranks, and he is barely verbal. Before we were instructed to wedge the door open with our foot, I would often experience something I cannot explain. One day, he used his hex board, requesting to use the restroom. I walked him to one of the bathrooms and physically saw him walking to the toilet, but the door shut faster than it should. It's supposed to slowly shut, yet it slammed shut in an almost impossible manner. I quickly opened it, thinking he pulled the handle, but when it opened, I physically saw him standing at the toilet, so I shut the door again, and as usual, he knocked, suggesting he was done. When I opened the door, he was still peeing. I was so confused, and I quickly shut the door again to give him his privacy. A couple seconds later, I heard the felt 3 very hard knocks, like a full-grown adult knocking with larger knuckles from the other side. My heart dropped because it didn't sound like the knock of a child. I opened it again. He hadn't moved. He was still peeing, totally unaware. It made no sense. The bathrooms are large. There's no way to play a trick like that, especially not while peeing and being monitored. I heard the pee still falling, so there's no way he stopped, ran to knock, and went back to peeing. It would not be possible to do this in under 2 to 3 seconds. Several weeks later, we were told to fully close the door during bathroom breaks due to this kid's tendency to strangely lock it shut. Yet I still experienced the same unexplained occurrence. It was definitely not just 1 or 2 times. It's happened on multiple occasions and with different therapists and techs, not even just with this particular patient. So anyways, during this other incident with my foot wedged between the door, I heard the knocking and I snapped my neck back expecting to see him by the door, but he was several feet away, still peeing. This really creeped me out, and I asked the other therapist who worked with him, and they all cut me off. They all knew exactly what I was talking about. We'd laugh and say the building is haunted, but deep down it wasn't so funny. We were genuinely unsure of how to feel. Then there was the pen incident. One of my coworkers was writing notes while training a new tech with a black pen, literally mid-sentence, when she paused and said, "Where did my pen go?" We all laughed. She had just been writing. We checked her lap, the floor, the table, even behind her ears. She shot up out of her seat and reached into her pockets, too. Nothing. Then she opened a drawer, then another, still nothing. She opened a third one. A plastic baggie was inside, and the pen was in the bag. We all saw it at once. There's no world in which she could have dropped it in there. We would have noticed. We weren't even near that side of the room, and she didn't even touch that drawer before. It was like something placed it there to mess with us. Things always go missing in our facility: toys, snacks, supplies, paperwork. Just last week, I pulled out a labeled plastic bag filled with coins for a therapy activity. It was gone. Not in the bin, not on the floor. I assumed it was misplaced. I asked my coworker who works in the space right next to mine if she saw it. I even joked and said it was a ghost. We laughed, and she was made aware that this bag mysteriously vanished. I walked to toss something in the trash, came back, and now the bag was sitting right there. I told her, and we both gasped. It was in the bin again, but the other labeled bag was gone now. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. Again, I asked my coworker, and she shrugged her shoulders. We both exchanged nervous glances and laughed it off again, but it was clear by the energy between us that something wasn't right. Later, after taking my kid to the playroom for his earned break, I returned to find the second missing bag neatly placed on my chair. I asked my coworker if she found it, and her face drained. She whispered, "No, I haven't even seen it since earlier." She walked over, looked at the chair, and just stared at it. I swear on my life, I didn't put that there. There's always laughter after things like this. Nervous, hollow laughter. We all agree the place is haunted, but none of us want to admit how much it scares us. We joke, we cope, but the truth is, there's a shared fear no one really says aloud. Another time, a coworker was walking with a 13-year-old client hand in hand when the kid suddenly froze, causing her body to briefly yank backwards. She turned to redirect him, and her blood ran cold. Her hand was empty, and her kiddo was staring at her several feet away at the opposite end of the hall, where they initially started walking. The boy was staring blankly at her, but she could still feel a hand in hers. Whoever she was holding wasn't him. Her knees buckled. She told us she nearly fainted. There's more. We hear children screaming in rooms no one is in. Glow-in-the-dark stars in our sensory room peeled off and dropped to the floor on their own. A back door that shouldn't open from the inside of the sensory room somehow swung wide open. A massive puddle of water appeared just beyond it. None of us opened it. The glow stars were always firmly stuck up for months. In one terrifying case, a child was heard screaming at the top of her lungs, raw and painful, like she was being hurt. Several therapists ran toward the sound, following it to the sensory room. When they opened the door, it was empty. The lights were dim, the glow stars scattered on the floor. That locked back door was wide open. Our staff on the other side of the building swore they saw a child run toward the kitchen, but every kid was accounted for. When we reached the kitchen, the fridge door was open. Several juice boxes had been removed. One was teetering on the edge of the counter. Then there's the bathroom incident, the one that still makes my skin crawl. We heard someone violently vomiting. The bathroom door was locked from the inside. The lights were on, flickering. The manager assumed it was a sick coworker and grabbed the master key. We all stood there listening to the sounds, horrible, real gagging sounds, until she finally opened the door. There was no one there. No vomit, no person, just the stench. An overwhelming smell that made every one of us recoil and gag. And then the toilet flushed on its own. We all ran, dragging our kids with us. The building is always freezing cold, that kind of cold that seeps into your bones, even in summer. The air feels heavy. Toys fall from shelves when no one is near. Cabinets slam shut when the kitchen is empty. Doors click locked and unlock themselves. Lights flicker. Whispers, footsteps, knocking sounds, laughter that doesn't belong to any of us. We've tried to explain it away, we've tried to ignore it, but deep down I think we all know. Something else is working with us here. Something that doesn't want to be ignored anymore. Update. I got many people asking if these occurrences make me or my coworkers, the kids, feel uncomfortable or unsafe, but this is not really the case because those of us who know discuss it amongst each other, whereas the others are sort of still in denial and try not to believe it exists. Also, for those who have already experienced far too much to attribute to some chance occurrence, said they sleep better at night believing whatever it is isn't evil or hurtful. Laugh out loud. The kids have no idea about that fact and that these are paranormal things, and I'm pretty sure that the ones who do are not even able to explain it. Many of our patients are nonverbal. Update 2. Okay, so today we had a little party for the kiddos graduating from the clinic, and okay, this was very weird. Me and my coworkers witnessed several things during this 45-ish minute celebration. first instance was when the kids were having a dance contest. A kid was angry that we were not playing the song that he wanted, and we were. It was already in the playlist at this point, but he was being very impatient. He threw a tantrum and popped his balloon. The BCBA controlling the music lowered it slightly, and Eric corrected him to teach him how to remain patient. And just then, a balloon across the total opposite side of this large room floating on the floor popped. Everyone looked. It was somehow way louder than the music. Then suddenly a little girl sitting on one of the chairs holding one of these balloons randomly popped. And then literally a second later, 2 other balloons popped and one had confetti. The one with confetti was taped on the wall, so it popped midair and the kids ran underneath them as they gently rained down. Literally in the exact spot they were all dancing. All of my coworkers were like, "What the fuck?" Silently. I told the newbies that this wasn't rare, and my other coworkers started chiming in, supporting the fact that these balloons all popped by themselves, as if some ghost kid was copying the original kiddo who popped his balloon. And then when we served the kids pizza, one therapist said, "I love how you are all sitting so nicely." Literally 1 second later, one of the kids fell off her chair and it... Oh, shnikes. My phone just fell. We helped her up. When we served the cake, it happened again, but to 2 different kiddos, and one of these kiddos is graduating next month. The other was graduating today. They're both around 11 to 13-ish, and those are not the types of kids to just follow, especially while they're enjoying their cake. It felt like something was mocking us. Oh, and also, a giant pizza box went missing and we could not find it. Thankfully, there was more than enough for the kids and the workers. Later, when we were all cleaning and closing up, one of my coworkers screamed, "Who put the damn pepperoni pizza in the fridge?" Nobody did. Nobody. I feel like I can constantly update this thread because crap like this happens on a daily basis. It's honestly a little interesting and fun. I want so badly to know who or what the hell it is, though. I'm going to do a lot of research about the building, and I'm gonna update what I find. This one is by user /Elfrina_Green. My ghost stories after graduation. Alright, I'm not entirely sure where to start with this one. I've been going back and forth about it all week. I think, though, that this needs to be told. I'm warning you now that suicide is mentioned in this story. Please don't read that if it's a trigger for you. I lived with my best friend and her boyfriend for a while and even dated his brother for a short period. Now I know that if you read my stories, you've likely gone to my profile to check it out. There I mentioned that I am a witch and a medium. I have always been able to tell when something is going to happen, be it good or bad. This is important, I promise. I stopped my mom from going to a bar once, and we learned later that there had been both a shooting and a stabbing at the bar she was going to go to. I'm glad I stopped her. So when I met my bestie's boyfriend's brother, I knew that we would date. I knew how long the relationship would last, and I knew how he would break up with me. That's never fun. Anyway, we were hanging out one night at this place with a group of other people for like a game night. Somehow, it got out that I have Wyatt, something that I used to not tell people. I don't want to be in a white padded room. It doesn't sound very fun. Somehow, though, it was brought up and people started bombarding me with questions about ghosts and the paranormal. Please, if you ever meet me in real life, don't do that, please. It was a short-lived conversation because I am very good at changing the subject. Later that night, as we were lying in bed, my boyfriend admitted to being able to see what I equated to fairies. I asked him to describe them to me, and what he said sounded more like will-o'-the-wisps than actual fairies. I tried to explain to him that I had seen them before too, and that he should be careful around them. He didn't like that. Not too long after that, he broke up with me in a text using words that I now thoroughly despise. I can't do this anymore. Like, what is that supposed to even mean? Anyway, back to the story. I left the life I had begun to build there behind and went back to my family. Big mistake on my part, mostly. It wasn't too long after returning home that I met my first fiancé. He was well over 6 feet tall and has hazel eyes. Not important anyway. He knew from past conversations that I am a witch and that I wear a lot of black. About 3 months into dating, he proposed. I'll cop to the fact that I was young and stupid when I said yes. He had conditions, though, and that should have been a red brick thrown at my face. His main condition was that I had to stop practicing witchcraft. I never truly did. His family are hardcore Bible thumpers, and I needed to fit in. Ugh. We never got legally married, thank the gods, but he did give me my son. Now, I've mentioned a George before here, and after my son's father and I split, I would find my son talking to someone by the name of George. I'm fairly certain that it wasn't the same George because my son described his George as an elderly gentleman. Eventually, I moved on from my ex and met my current and legal husband. The first thing you need to know about him is that he was raised Christian but stopped going to church during his teenage years. The second thing you need to know is that he's the best friend of my bestie's husband. Funny, right? Anyway, upon meeting, we started talking about our beliefs. I had decided that I would never date someone who wanted me to change ever again. Funnily enough, he supports my beliefs, obviously, since we've been married now for 7 years and together for almost 14. Anyway, we were hanging out with our besties in our shared apartment when it happened. Wyatt was behaving and not trying to freak anyone out, so it wasn't him. My bestie's husband was out doing some shopping, something I would only learn afterward. I was getting up to fix dinner when I saw a man standing in their bedroom. "Oh, hey, Ryan," I said. "I didn't realize that you guys were home. I was just about to start cooking." He didn't respond, but my bestie gave me a funny look and looked down the hall to their bedroom. I shrugged it off and simply ignored it, going about my task. About 10 minutes later, my husband and Ryan came walking through the door laughing and carrying groceries. I stopped what I was doing and stared at them. My bestie thought it was the funniest thing she had ever seen. I came around the small counter that separated the kitchen and dining room and looked back towards their room. Ryan and my husband, Matt, asked what the problem was. I pointed between Ryan and their room, mouth agape. I shook my head and turned to Ryan. "You were in your room not 10 minutes ago." No," he said. I nodded my head and swore that I had just seen him in their room. He asked me to describe what I had seen, so I did. Watched his face go pale, which for a 6-foot African-American was kind of funny. He sat heavily in one of the chairs in the living room. I had just described in great detail his cousin, who had taken his own life sometime earlier. He and Ryan had been very tight-knit, and Ryan had been missing him lately since he had gotten engaged to my bestie. Wyatt, being Wyatt, wanted to know why this spirit hadn't moved on, so he asked. The cousin wasn't ready to move on and was just watching over Ryan and his life. He didn't want to leave because, as a Christian, he was afraid of going to hell for what he had done. I hate that. So I asked Ryan if his cousin could hang out until he was ready to move on. Here's the thing about Ryan. He is kind, almost to a fault. He didn't even take a second to think about it before saying that his cousin could stay as long as he pleased. The cousin was still there when Maddie and I moved to Washington 7 years ago. I'm pretty sure he's still there, but he comes up here now and then. Wyatt and he have become good friends. Wyatt has informed him several times that how you pass plays no role in your judgment, trying to convince him to move on. I think he's still afraid of going to hell, and I can't say I blame him. being raised the way he was. He doesn't quite believe Wyatt. I hope that he'll move on eventually, but for now he's welcome in our home and my besties for as long as he likes. For those out there who are afraid that their loved ones who took their own lives have ended up in hell, I need you to know that that isn't necessarily true. They may still be watching over you, refusing to move on, or they have moved on and have been judged by how they lived and not how they died. Some things just can't be quantified. Death is one of those things. And this one is by user/pushy unicorn. My dreams. Hello. I am new to this social network. I took advantage of this opportunity to tell you that I was there in 2019 through 2020 and always dreamed of an already emaciated, horrible lady. She was already blind in one eye. It always caused me nightmares, and I remember that one night I woke up suddenly dreaming about that lady. I was lying on my back and couldn't see my door, but when I turned around, I can swear that I saw that lady. She was tall. Her arm was literally rotten as if she had worms eating her, and she was quite pale and skinny. I was too scared and screamed loudly. That lady started running towards the kitchen. My parents came to my room scared. I explained everything to them, and my parents thought that I was just too sleepy to distinguish reality and the hallucinations, and they never believed me. I told my grandmother, and she believed me. She took me to do a cleaning since she said that the devil wanted to take me. Currently, I still have nightmares about that night, and every time my grandmother comes to my house, she passes an egg with water all over my room and puts crosses all over my room. I don't know what to do. This one is by user/library rat since 1984. Worked at Windsor Castle's Royal Library for over a decade, and it was haunted. Hi. I used to work at Windsor Castle, specifically in the Royal Library from the late 1980s until I left in 2003 after my third child was born. I wanted to stay home with my kids, and honestly, after everything I experienced there, I was kind of ready to be done. I wasn't anyone important, just a junior library assistant. Basically, I helped with cataloging, pulling materials, handling rare books, and that sort of thing. The Royal Library isn't open to the public, and everything in there is strictly protected and preserved. We worked in quiet rooms with controlled temperature and lighting, and had to follow a lot of rules. But here's the thing. Windsor is haunted as hell, like, truly. And I didn't believe in that kind of thing when I started. The first thing I saw was Queen Elizabeth I. Yes, really. It was around 1992, and I was working late in one of the archive rooms, just shelving. I turned around and saw a woman in an elaborate old gown, stiff white collar, red hair, just standing in the doorway. She didn't say anything, didn't move. I thought I was going mad. She looked too real to be a hallucination. Then she walked backwards into the wall and disappeared. I will never forget that image. It was the most bizarre, unnatural thing I've ever seen. There's a black dog that shows up around the west side of the library. No one talks about it officially, but we all knew. I saw it twice. It just appears, trots by, then vanishes when you turn to look at it properly. Someone once told me it's connected to a prince who died in childhood, but who knows? All I know is it gave me chills every time. Other weird stuff. Footsteps above you when no one's upstairs. Pages turning in a book no one is touching. Cold spots, even in temperature-controlled rooms. Whispers in Latin or French when no one's around. A man in old-fashioned clothes staring from a locked archive room. The room was empty when we unlocked it. It wasn't constant, but it happened enough that I stopped questioning it. I've never talked about this publicly before, and honestly, I'm a bit nervous even typing this out. We were always told to be discreet, and working in any royal residence comes with a sense of don't ask, don't tell when it comes to that kind of thing, but after 20 plus years, I just wanted to share it somewhere with people who might get it. I haven't been back since I left, and I don't think I want to. Happy to answer questions. Thanks for reading. This one is by u/Mugen. Did you forget to greet them? Can't even greet your elders anymore? It was during summer break when I stayed at my grandmother's countryside home. The house was over 100 years old. In the far back was a traditional butsuma, a Buddhist room housing the familiar altar. No one ever went near it. Your ancestors are there, Grandma would say, but I'd never seen her pray or even open the door. That night I woke up needing to use the bathroom. As I wandered down the dim hallway, I heard voices coming from the direction of the butsuma. Still half asleep, I stumbled toward the sound. Was someone in there? It was the middle of the night, yet I could hear multiple people speaking clearly. He came all the way here and still won't show his face. Doesn't even know who's in the room, does he? No manners at all. Puzzled, I leaned closer and pressed my ear to the sliding door. That's when it happened. No more eavesdropping, come say hello already. The voice roared directly into my ear. I yelped and fell backwards, landing hard on the floor. And as I looked up in terror, I saw it. Through the narrow gap in the door, a line of feet, kneeling silently in seiza, arranged neatly on the tatami mats. The next morning, Grandma chuckled. So, you went to the butsuma, huh? Well, I suppose you forgot to greet them, didn't you? How rude. This one is by u/much-evening6686. What happened during a paranormal TV shoot that never aired? This is something that happened back when I was working as a production assistant on a paranormal TV show. It happened during the filming of one of the paranormal specials that the show used to do on location. The concept of the shoot was simple. A famous psychic would visit ordinary people's homes and perform exorcisms on the spirits said to haunt them. Just to be clear, I'm not going to reveal who the psychic was, and I'd appreciate it if no one tries to guess or speculate. I have absolutely no intention of criticizing or slandering them. There was a reporter, the psychic, a cameraman, and a few crew members like me, but none of us, including myself, had any sort of spiritual sensitivity. The house we visited was in an old town somewhere in Massachusetts, if I remember correctly. My memory's a bit hazy, so I'm sorry if I got that wrong. It was a large old house, and the request had come from the wife who lived there. Ever since they bought the house, she said strange things had been happening constantly inside, and bad luck had been plaguing their lives. The wife had very strong spiritual sensitivity. She said a young boy's ghost was wandering all throughout the house. Toys would start moving on their own, even when no one was nearby. They would hear crying coming from the bathroom and the sound of footsteps running rapidly across the second floor, day or night. She also said there had been accidents and spiritual disturbances happening frequently. Hearing all this, the famous psychic began walking through the house, performing the exorcism. All the spirits dwelling in this house have been cleansed. You may now return to your normal life. You'll no longer be troubled by evil spirits. And with that, the psychic's part was done, and the shoot wrapped up without any issues. The reporter and the psychic headed back to the production van. The rest of the crew were cleaning up, and I was sitting alone in the dining kitchen. I happened to glance over and saw the wife standing in the corner of the kitchen, head down, wearing a deeply troubled expression. Something about it bothered me, so I asked,
Is everything all right? She suddenly looked at me and asked with a serious, almost angry gaze, Can that psychic really see spirits? I stammered, well, they're quite famous in the field. Then she said, Then why didn't they notice that child's spirit has been clinging to my leg ever since that person stepped into this house? I looked down at her feet, but I couldn't see anything. Still, the thought crossed my mind. What if something was clinging to her leg, staring up at me from down there? Just imagining that sent a chill down my spine. Needless to say, that episode was scrapped and never aired. This one is by user much-evening6686. I remember you now, the terrifying words that haunted them for life. A story I heard from my colleague Ian. When he was a freshman in college, he and 4 close friends decided to go on a ghost hunting dare. It was an abandoned hospital just outside the city in Massachusetts, a place quite famous for being haunted. It was precisely around midnight. They parked the car near the hospital entrance, and each of them grabbed a flashlight and got out. All the windows were shattered and ivy covered the walls thickly, making it obvious the place had been vacant for a long time. Inside the building was dilapidated with graffiti and trash, but in each room there were old magazines, beds, and even files that looked like patient charts. It was reportedly highly unsettling. While goofing around and exploring the rooms at random, they eventually reached the 3rd floor. At that moment, Kyle, who was then a junior in college, suddenly came up with a totally outrageous idea. Hey, how about we draw straws now, and whoever loses has to walk alone to the end of this floor's hallway? The thrill-seeking members eagerly agreed. Ian, however, was apparently pretty terrified inside. And as it turned out, Kyle himself, the one who had proposed the idea, was the one who lost. Kyle had 0 spiritual sensitivity and didn't even believe in those sorts of things, although he said things like, "This is messed up, seriously creepy." He advanced down the hallway without hesitation. The hospital wasn't that large, so as he marched forward, he quickly reached the end of the hallway. When he looked back, he saw the flashlights held by his friend swaying. Just as Kyle started walking back toward the light, he heard a slow creak behind him. A door was opening. His heart leapt. He tried to convince himself that it was just a gust of wind or something, and Kyle turned his head to look back. Peering out was a middle-aged man in his 50s dressed like a security guard. "Hey there, kid. What are you doing in a place like this?" "What? A human?" Kyle relaxed, but the next moment he saw the full body of that man step out of the room and was struck dumb. The man's body was grotesquely twisted. The upper and lower halves were misaligned, and his arms bent backward at the joints. Kyle let out a scream more like silence than sound and sprinted full speed toward his friends. The 3 waiting for Kyle at the hallway's end saw him screaming and running and laughing. "Wow, he's totally terrified." However, as Kyle drew nearer, they saw what was right behind him. No, behind Kyle, there was something. They let out screams and fled. Turning as they ran, they saw the man dragging his foot, chasing them at inhuman speed. This wasn't a dream or an illusion. It was real. There he was, undeniably present. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Wait! Ah! Eerie footsteps and a deranged laugh echoed through the darkness. The 4 of them ran back to the car as if their lives depended on it. Hurry, start the car! Kyle, with shaking hands, inserted the key and started the engine. "I remember you now." He looked toward the voice and saw the middle-aged man pressing his face against the car window, peering inside, eyes rolling crazily. "What?" Kyle slammed the accelerator. The car screeched and shot forward. None of them could clearly recall how they made it back, but ultimately, All four managed to return home. However, the next night, that man appeared in Ian's room. That night, Ian was lying on his loft bed but couldn't fall asleep. Then from below came a creak sound, the ladder being climbed. Oh God. Ian squeezed his eyes shut and tensed his body. "Please go away. Don't come. Stop. Please," he repeated desperately in his mind. The sound stopped immediately, but Ian couldn't let go of his tension and stayed frozen for several minutes. "Are you still there? Have you gone?" He exhaled, trembling, and slowly opened his eyes. Just inches away in front of him, nearly brushing his nose, was that man's face. The man was straddling Ian, elbows pressed on both sides of his face, staring down with wide-open eyes. When the man met Ian's gaze, he cocked his head and said, Nope." And then he just vanished. Ian lost consciousness right then and there. The next day, Ian told the other three about everything. They said that, besides Kyle, the other two had similar experiences. Strangely, Kyle alone had experienced nothing. "I didn't feel anything last night, but since then I've been feeling sick." Indeed, Kyle looked visibly pale that day. Ever since then, Kyle became astonishingly listless and began ignoring invitations from Ian and others. But nothing drastic happened, and eventually Kyle graduated and moved on. Years later, after graduating college and joining his current company, Ian had nearly forgotten that ghost hunting night. That was until one of his old ghost hunting buddies reached out. Apparently, Kyle had broken down and had been hospitalized for about a year. Ian and the others went to visit him in hospital, but Kyle's behavior was evidently strange. He looked terrified, always darting his eyes, and couldn't hold a coherent conversation. His family said that over the past few months his mental age had regressed rapidly. By the time Ian visited, Kyle was functioning at about a middle school kid's level. Kyle reportedly said, "Someone's watching me. I always feel the stare." Suddenly that night came rushing back into Ian's mind. A few months later, Ian visited again. By then, Kyle's mental age had regressed to around 4 or 5. Kyle, like a frightened child, cried repeatedly, "That creepy man, he keeps smiling and watching me. I'm scared. I'm scared." Several months after that, they received word that Kyle had died. He could no longer speak or eat and spent his final months bedridden, kept alive only by IV fluids, until he quietly passed away. After Ian told me the story, he said quietly, "I wonder, did Kyle see that middle-aged man right up to the end?" Ever since I heard that story, I've never been able to do a ghost hunting dare again. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we are going to go to our second music break. And on this music break, of course, once again, we have Miss Mia Savage with her band, Antidote for Savages, with The Bottom Line, Singing to Your Grave, Bury Me in Heaven, and Not a Phase. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
doesn't matter, because it's just a ride, and we can change it anytime we want.
It's all a choice. No record, no work, no job, no savings of money.
Just a choice right now between fear and love.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. So this evening we have finished Stephen King's book Cell. There was like handwritten stuff in the back of, for another book that he was going to write. Liza's story or Lisa's story or Lizzie's story. I'm not sure as far as pronunciation of the name, but we did that. And then second hour, Reddit Ghost Stories. The third hour, more Reddit Ghost Stories. But before we go on to reading that, we are going to be sharing the quote of the hour. This one says, "Happiness is not something you get, but something you do." So true. You create your own happiness. And don't forget it. Alright, this one is by Where Echoes Creep. And in case you guys were wondering, this is under Reddit Ghost Stories. What's the creepiest thing you've experienced while completely alone? I'll never forget what happened to me that day. It was a Sunday afternoon, nothing out of the ordinary. I was around 20 years old, just lounging on the couch like I always did. The TV was on, playing some random show I wasn't even paying full attention to. I remember the sun filtering through the curtains and the room being warm, quiet, and still. Everything about that day felt completely normal until it didn't. At some point, I must have drifted off. I wasn't fully asleep, more like floating in that in-between state where you're not quite dreaming but not fully conscious either. I've always been a light sleeper, so it didn't surprise me that I was aware of my surroundings even while dozing, but what did surprise me was what came next. I realized I was in sleep paralysis. I've experienced it before. It's disturbing, sure, but I've learned how to deal with it. I usually have little mental tricks I use to jolt myself awake. Wiggling a toe, focusing on my breathing, trying to blink repeatedly. They always worked, but this time, nothing did. I was completely stuck, fully conscious but frozen. I couldn't move a finger. I couldn't even blink. That familiar weight sat heavy on my chest like something was holding me down. Panic started to set in, but I kept trying, convinced I'd snap out of it in a few seconds, like always. Then I looked up. That's when I saw it. A dark silhouette stood over me. No features, no face. Just a tall black shape that seemed to absorb the light around it. It leaned in slowly, deliberately, until it was inches from my face. I couldn't hear it breathe, but I could feel it breathing. Like it was studying me, feeding off my fear. It didn't move or speak, it just stared. I tried to scream, tried to move, nothing. I was screaming in my head, begging to wake up, begging for someone, anyone to come in and shake me out of this nightmare, but I was locked inside my own body, trapped with this thing just hovering above me. The worst part? The fear didn't feel like it came from a dream, it felt real. I don't know how long it lasted. Could have been seconds, could have been minutes. Time doesn't work the same when you're that terrified. Eventually, I must have made some sound, some strained, muffled noise, because my sister heard me from the other room. She rushed in and shook me awake. The moment I could move again, I bolted upright. My chest was heaving and I was drenched in sweat. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my body. I looked around frantically, but of course, nothing was there. The room was quiet. The sunlight was still coming through the window like nothing had happened. I've never seen that figure again, not in sleep, not in waking life. But the memory of it has stayed with me, clear as day. And I've had sleep paralysis once since then, but never like that. Never with something so present. I still believe it wasn't just sleep paralysis. It felt darker, heavier, like something evil had slipped into the room with me. Maybe it was a shadow person, maybe something worse, but I know what I saw, and I know it was watching me. This one is by Silverheart719. True story. I, 21 female, think I'm being hunted by a hellhound. It started a couple of weeks ago when I heard a growl at my left side, thinking it was my mom's dog. Mind you, it's a Chihuahua mix, so it's not a big dog. Anyways, back to the story. So I start looking for her, but I couldn't. So I look under my bed, nothing. So I asked my mom if her dog was with her, and my mom said yes. Now I know I could debunk this as either a coyote or a fox, but I know a fact there wasn't an evidence there that it was a coyote nor a fox there, and it sounded like a big growl. Anyways, the next day as I was doing dishes and saw 2 red glowing eyes before I could register it, I ran quickly away into my bedroom. I dropped a plate in the sink chasing it, and yes, I know it was stupid of me chasing a hellhound, but I thought it was my mom's dog Luna. Mind you, everyone was asleep. Did she just say her mom's dog was a Chihuahua? Okay. I know hellhounds are bigger than that, but let's not fall off topic here. Anyways, I'm getting off topic again. I looked around to find Luna, but nothing, and again I asked my mom, and she said Luna stayed with her all night. A couple of weeks went past, and as they did, Luna started to be scared to go to my bedroom, and usually she's a pretty brave little dog. She even chased away a pit bull. Anyways, she will refuse to go to my bedroom, but something strange is happening to her every time I heard the hellhound. She won't bark nor growl as if she doesn't hear it, and again, I am so sorry to get off topic again, but I must share this with someone. Usually if Luna hears something that doesn't sound right to her, Luna barks and growls at it. I think that the hellhound, or whatever it is, has done something to her. I'm not sure if it is even a hellhound or a spirit, but I know in my body something is not right in my bedroom. Oh no. This one is by independent_cell_498. Helvetia, West Virginia. I went with my family this weekend to Helvetia. We grabbed lunch at the small diner there that also serves as a post office, general store, and mask museum. What is that? The service was slow, so I was killing time with my son while we waited. At one point, we walked to the rear of the diner where the door was open and a screen door that was closed. We were looking out the screen door. He was asking questions about something, and someone walked up near me to my right. I assumed they were checking out some of the decorations on the shelves there, and I took a step towards my son to move out of their way so they could see the decor closer. So, as I stepped back, I also turned to give a friendly smile. I was surprised to see that there was no one beside me. I've always been in the ghost start grill, there's always a reasonable explanation boat. I've explored Trans-Allegheny Asylum and never saw anything that people say they see, although I did walk into a pitch black room there and got the impression that something in there did not want me there. Then the guide told us after we explored the wing that it was one of the most haunted parts. My wife fully believes in ghosts and spirits and even believes she can communicate with them sometimes and will often get a vibe or feeling when she thinks there are ghosts. At this diner, she said she had a heavy feeling in her chest like she gets when we watch a scary movie. We also had a friend and his family join us, whose daughter was scared of the place and kept asking him to take her outside because of the masks. I told my wife about the experience when we got back, and she Googled Helvetia and haunting experiences. Apparently, there have been multiple sightings of similar entities there. Lots of stories here on Reddit about them as well. This one is by Much-Evening6686. The unease and terror I felt while washing my hair. I recently heard this story from my girlfriend, and I haven't been able to shake it since. She said it happened a few years ago. This is a true story. A few years ago, I was living with my younger sister in the suburbs of Asheville, North Carolina. We had originally been renting separate apartments, but we realized that by combining our rent, we could afford a house in the suburbs, so we moved to a spacious and quiet residential area a little ways outside the city. One evening, my sister was taking a bath, and I was upstairs in the living room watching TV. Suddenly, I heard a terrifying scream from the first floor. I thought maybe she'd seen a spider or something and rushed down the stairs, only to find her standing in the hallway, completely drenched and stark naked. Stunned by the sight, I asked, "What happened?" With a pale face, she said in a trembling voice, Can you check the bathroom, please?" Just as she asked, I went to check, but there didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. The floor was soaking wet, and it was clear she had bolted out of the tub in a panic. After drying off and getting dressed, she blow-dried her hair, took a deep breath, and finally began to speak. I was soaking in the bathtub when I suddenly heard it, a slow, eerie breathing sound. I looked around, but no one was there. I figured it must have been the wind and didn't think much of it, so I started washing my hair. She said she kept her body submerged in the tub, leaned forward with her upper body out, and washed her hair in that position. She lathered the shampoo in her hands, ran her fingers over her scalp, and massaged her hair as she washed. Then she suddenly noticed something. The hair. It was long. She said the hair she was washing was clearly several inches longer than her own, and the moment she realized one more strange thing, she screamed and jumped out of the bathroom. I felt something touching the back of my head. I think it was someone's nose pressing against me from behind. Ever since then, my sister has been extremely afraid of bathing alone, and I've had to wait right outside the bathroom door whenever she takes a bath. As for me, I have never experienced anything strange to this day. But even now, my sister still says this with absolute certainty. I'm telling you, back then, I was washing someone else's hair, not mine. Ew, creepy. This one is by Nebin_KK1567. My friend's creepy night near the cemetery ended in a funny way. This happened to my friend one night. It was almost midnight when he was walking home with a heavy bag with tapioca on his back. The road was dark and silent, with only the sound of his footsteps. As he reached near the cemetery, the air felt colder, and the place was so quiet it gave him chills. Suddenly he heard a thud behind him, like something had been thrown. He turned around. Nothing. His heart started beating faster. He walked quickly, but then it happened again. Thud. Thud. The sound kept following him. The more he walked, the closer and louder it got, like something was chasing him. Fear took over, and he finally dropped the bag and ran as fast as he could, not daring to look back. In the morning, he went to see what had happened. There was no ghost, no strange creature, just a trail of tapioca on the road. The bag had a hole, and the haunting was just tapioca falling out one by one, or drop by drop, or thwep by thwep. This one is by no_perspective 3944. Friend's haunted house. About 4-ish years ago, when my girlfriend and I started dating, we had gone to her cousin's house for a gender reveal party. This was the first time I've had met them and first time going over to their house. Later in the night, we were all sitting in the living room, talking to her cousin, was showing me a collection of Star Wars and Marvel stuff. There were balloons all over the place for decoration, but they were all against the ceiling except for one. It was just floating there, and one of the guests, G, noticed it and decided to say, "Well, if there's someone here, move that balloon over to H." We all watched as the balloon moved over and floated above his head. G then said, "Okay, now move over to J." Head, and it did. We were all just sitting there watching it. No one said anything more, pulled their phones to record it. After what seemed like hours, but it was really just seconds, the balloon heads towards the door and stopped, then it lowered itself to fly out of the open door. We were all shocked and scared, but most was like, did that really just happen? Later on, when I was playing games with her cousin, I had asked him how haunted was his house, and so far he said, there's at least 4 ghosts. 1, the old woman. There's an old lady that wanders the living room, middle area of the house. She's harmless from what he told me, and she just sits on the couch and walks around. 2, the stair ghost. He isn't sure what it is, but there's a ghost that runs up and down the stairs at his home. 3, the upstairs ghost. There's a ghost that moves stuff around and runs around at night or when his brother isn't home. 4, the basement ghost. He isn't sure what's in the basement, but he said it's always a weird feeling down there. One time he heard something hissing in his ear when he was doing laundry. I always hate, which I've never had a house like this, but I've seen houses, and a lot of times it's like on the Foreman Brothers, Paranormal Nightmare, or different shows like that, where their laundry room is in the basement of the house, and it's just like in the really dark back corner, and it's just redonkulous, really. Why? Why do you have your laundry shit in the basement? Put it upstairs somewhere safe. Store your stuff downstairs. Put your least favorite relative down there, whatever you want to do, but don't put the washer and dryer down there, or stuff you gotta use regularly. If that were at my house, the laundry would never get done, because I would not be going down there unless I had like a whole group of people with me or something. Thoroughly. Right, this one is by Angie_Reddit_. My sister's boyfriend actually died. Or did he? When I was 5, my older sister, who was 18, had her first boyfriend. His name was Samuel. He was a nice neighborhood boy, and my parents really liked him. Sometimes when I came home, I would stay with them for a while, and although I didn't say anything, I would notice my sister's upset face. The fact is that one day, Samuel stopped coming. My sister and him had left him. Time passed and we grew. We recently had a family meal, and while chatting, the topic of our adolescence came up. I then remembered Samuel, my sister's ex-boyfriend. But when I mentioned it, my parents and sisters had a strange face. My sister said that she and Samuel had been dating when he was about 12, before I was born, and that Samuel had died of cancer when I was 6 months old. My sister hadn't had a boyfriend again until she was 22, so who is that boy I played with so many times in my room? Hey, I personally think that was Samuel. I think he was attached to the baby. Or maybe the baby's the only one that could see him. This is by Evil Lurking. And that's just one word. EVILLURKING. My haunted house. We bought this house 1 year ago today, July 8th. We were told when we came to see the house that the previous owner had died, but it wasn't until we were a week or two away from closing that I found the obituary and read she had died at her home. Immediately when we moved in, I started seeing things. My 18-year-old daughter said it was haunted from the moment she stepped in. She was not with us when we looked at it. This was after we bought it. It started with me seeing what I would say is a woman walking from the dining room to the living room as I went from the living room to the kitchen. It makes a big circle. The house is a tri-level, so the main floor, then stairs that go upstairs to the bathroom and bedrooms, and separate stairs that go downstairs to the walkout basement. That is open except utility room and a second bathroom. Also, from moving in every time I'd go down the stairs from the bedroom, I'd see someone standing on the other stairs. It's hard to describe this, but there's a window with no glass that lets you see the other stairs that go down. A friend has experienced this too. I've not had it happen in months and nothing has changed. I kept all this to myself, but my husband, who has been a non-believer until recent years and experiences, he has had changed that and started seeing things. He had a black shadow walk up to him in the bathroom. He thought someone had came in until he saw it disappear. Freaked him out. He has seen shadows other times too. I've seen shadows walk by and move doors. The weirdest thing would be seeing what looked like a person reflected in the TV when it was black. It was like someone bent over looking at the TV very close, and then they stood straight up and stepped back. I've seen my husband a few times, and it wasn't him. Woke up and got out of bed. He was asleep next to me, so I was trying not to wake him. Started downstairs and realized he was asleep on the couch. Went and checked the bed, and it was empty. Newest thing was last night. I had just turned my phone off and was settling to go to sleep. I wear a sleep mask, so it was on. I felt an arm on my hip, and it slid across. Took my mask off, rolled over, and checked my husband, who was asleep with both arms under his blanket. We have separate ones, and I hadn't felt him move, so this is the first time it's touched me. Very weird. Before someone asks, yes, I have cats, but my door stays shut and they are not allowed in my room. Sorry, this is long. It's not everything that has happened, but a big chunk. I should tell some other of my ghost stories sometime. Yes, you should. This one is by Mobile District 9784. I work at a haunted nursing home. Tell you what, pretty sure every nursing home is haunted. There's things there that feed off of the old people. A lot of times it's a little girl. Sometimes it's something else. I just recently got a job doing night shift at a retirement center close to my house. One of the first things that someone told me was that the main hall was haunted. For clarification, about 2 years ago, there was this guy living at the nursing home that liked to help around the place a lot, and one day he asked a worker if he could borrow the water hose the day they were spraying off the patios, and the worker agreed since the guy usually sprayed off the patio near his room. Well, an hour went by and the workers had gone about their duties, not even thinking about the request, until an hour later the boss noted that the man hadn't returned the hose yet, so they went to find him. They found him hanging from a tree in the backyard. But since his death, they swear up and down he haunts the hall. Every worker and resident swears they've seen him, even the ones who don't believe in the paranormal. But a few days ago, on my first night working there, I was cleaning the windows around midnight on the hall the man used to live on when I looked up and saw the reflection of a man standing behind me watching me. I turned around and no one was there. Everyone else was asleep, residents or not, near the hall. coworker. Fast forward to a few hours ago, me and a coworker just taken out a break around 3 a.m., the both of us talking in the parking lot when she looked away from the road for half a second, turned back to the road and completely froze and gestured for me to come and look. Standing in the middle of the road was a tall black figure, taller than even me, and I'm 6'2". I'd wager it was about a head taller than me. It was just standing in the middle of the road. We couldn't tell if it was staring at us or if it was staring down the road. We both stared at the figure for a good minute or two when it started walking down the road. I followed it, thinking it might be one of the residents trying to leave in the middle of the night, but when I got to the road, it was gone. It wasn't walking down the road, it wasn't walking down the other road connected to it, and it didn't go in a house, as I would have heard the door open and shut, and it wasn't fast or close enough to reach the end of the road in the 3 seconds it took me to go through the parking lot to the road. What freaked us both out was, when talking about it, we realized two things. A, it didn't stand like you'd expect a human to stand. It was all stiff and everything, and it just seemed to be wrong in a way I couldn't figure out. And then B, we both realized later we didn't see any arms on it. We didn't see arms when it was standing still, and we didn't see arms when it walked off. Curious. This one is by Much-Evening6686. What happened the night I decided to kill myself? This is a story I heard from a woman I recently became friends with. She told me this really happened to me and then shared the whole story. 8 years ago, after being severely bullied at work and having her entire personality denied, she decided to end her life. She placed her sewer slide note and will, including things like the location of her insurance papers, who should receive her savings and passwords into her wallet, and went to the top floor hallway of an old apartment building in seemingly weak security, but dying sober was, after all, terrifying. With alcohol and sleeping pills in her system, she was totally out of it, hyped up in a strange, reckless mood, and leaned forward shouting, "Here I go!" Then, when she happened to glance down, there was a prior guest. But something was strange. The same hairstyle as her, without a doubt, the exact same clothes, and the clothes she was wearing weren't even sold in stores. There's no way someone else could just coincidentally be wearing the exact same thing at this exact moment. As she was about to leap toward the next world, a new frontier as she saw it, the strange sense of exhilaration suddenly drained away. A prior guest? They're dead, right? But something's off, she thought as she leaned over to get a better look. The scene was horrifyingly grotesque. She could smell blood and even something like burnt flesh. There's no way smells from below should reach us high up, so why could she smell them? The body had its legs bent in unnatural directions, arms twisted, the spine sticking out from the back, one eyeball popping out of the face turned sideways, and brain matter oozing from the skull. And yet, despite how nauseating it was, she couldn't look away. As she stared at it, she finally realized what was off. Wait, this can't be real. That's me. Just a few minutes from now. The moment she realized it, a chill ran straight down her spine. If that's how I'll end up, no, I'm not doing this, she thought, and she turned back home. When she got home, overwhelmed with a storm of emotions, her mother gently stroked her head and pulled her into a warm hug, smiling faintly as she whispered, "Welcome back. You made it just in time." At that moment, it was like something inside her broke, and she broke down sobbing. Her mother seemed to know something, but didn't say a word about it. After deciding not to go through with the suicide, something shifted inside her. The workplace bullying rapidly faded. Her work began to be recognized. She made friends and found allies, and she left the company peacefully after getting married. She told me this. To this day, I still don't know who or what that me who died before I could jump really was. I don't know why I saw something like that either, but thanks to seeing myself all mangled and broken from jumping too soon, I'm still alive today. Well, that's pretty cool. And please don't think I'm being disrespectful when I say sewer slide or whatever. You just can't say certain words on YouTube and other outlets, so I changed it around a bit to get away from it as far as trouble. This one is by Shiley Beef. Shiley Beef. Since my baby arrived. Okay, so I generally am quite cynical and atheist, but I won't deny that these things have happened since my daughter was born 11 months ago, and I will try to simply relay them exactly as they happened. 1. While I was walking her around the house to try to get her to sleep at approximately 3 a.m., one of the toys in her toy chest started playing the go-to-sleep lullaby. It must have been at least 7 hours since that toy chest had been touched. 2. She woke in the night. I was getting her back off to sleep, but tried to lay her down in her cot, and she started to suddenly cry loudly. Nothing too unusual about that. I must have woke her up as I put her down. However, completely simultaneously with her sudden cries, there was a bright white flickering light in the hallway next to the room where we were. I worked it out to be the bathroom cabinet, which had a touch screen button to turn on a bright makeup light. The intensity of the flickering was so fast it was almost panicked, like it matched the shock of a baby suddenly crying. It has never done this before. 3. My wife was walking around in the pitch black. We put a blackout blind in our daughter's room. Holding our daughter, she said she was struggling to find the door as it was closed, and so not letting any light in the room, the door opens inwards to the room she was in. She was feeling along the wall to find the door with one hand when the door opened and hit her hand. 4. I was lying awake in the night when my daughter woke up stirring slightly. She sleeps in the room connected to ours with a door frame but no door. I heard my wife soothe her by gently shushing her, so I didn't get up. I hadn't heard my wife get up but assumed she was already up when I woke up. However, just because I wasn't 100% sure, I reached over to her side of the bed. I was facing away from her, and I felt her still lying next to me, so the shushing in the other room wasn't her. I inadvertently woke my wife by doing this, so she got up to soothe our baby, who hadn't quite settled. Here's another one from Much-Evening6686. The woman on the phone. This happened quite a long time ago. It was back when cell phones weren't all that common yet, so I think it was sometime in the late 1990s, just before the year 2000. I was out eating with a friend, and while he was giving me a ride home, he suddenly said, like he just remembered something, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" So I asked, "What is it? What's going on?" And he said, "My friends keep telling me that when they call my place, a woman answers the phone." He was single and living alone in an apartment, and I hadn't heard anything about him dating someone. It didn't seem like he was living with a girlfriend either. I was like, wait, what the hell does that mean? But I figured I'd mess with him a little, so I called his apartment from a nearby payphone. At first, I heard the usual answering machine message, "Please leave a message." So I pretended to panic and said something like, "Whoa, who the hell are you?" He looked completely freaked out, his face a mix of surprise and fear. Seeing that reaction, I thought my prank had worked perfectly and was pretty pleased with myself, but then I heard a click like someone picked up the phone, and a woman's voice said, "Hello?" Immediately got this really bad feeling like something was seriously wrong, so I told him, "Before you drop me off at my place, we're stopping by your apartment." We drove straight to his place together. Once we got there, I had him unlock the door, and we looked around the apartment, but no one was there. Still, the place had this awful atmosphere, like there was someone else in there. It was coming from the closet in the back of the room. Something about it felt really, really wrong. I ran over and flung the closet door open, and right there I saw a human head, or so I thought. Looking closer, it turned out to be the head of an old mannequin. "What the hell is this?" I asked. He said, "Back when I lived at my old place, I was drunk one night and picked it up from a trash pile. When I moved, I threw out a bunch of stuff, but for some reason I just couldn't get rid of this one." I said, "Dude, throw this thing out right now." So I made him toss it out right then and there. At that moment, I was 100% sure that the voice on the phone was definitely this thing. After that, no woman ever answered the phone again. Wow, that was pretty epic. Oh, I kind of want to read this next story, but we don't really have time. We only have 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And that's not time enough to read it, I don't think. I mean, I could try. Let's just go ahead and start the outro song, and then I'll see what I can do. Alright, guys, so. Oh, man. Never mind. I guess I won't. I just went back to searching for that page. Anyways, thank you so much once again for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Thank you to all of my friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and wherever you may be listening. Beyond the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend. Same crazy-ish, same time, same place. You know where to find me. Don't forget, fam, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a bit better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there really is no us. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and work week ahead, or week ahead. You know, you could be on vacation right now, I don't know. But I will see you back here, same crazy time, same crazy place. Take care of my ears. Mwah.